Good morning. Welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about my first 90 days as an NP. Let's see. My second group coaching experience was all about adopting a millionaire mindset. I'm going to share what I learned, but also what I think you would really benefit. Talk about pricing and if it's really worth the investment, and if I'll do it again. And yeah, so be sure to stick around to the end because I'm going to tell you the number one thing I learned in the last 90 days and how I would take the experience that I've just learned if I were starting all over again. If you're new here, first of all, subscribe so you don't miss any notifications next time I go live. Most of the time I go live, you'll find the majority of my videos, especially my recent videos and moving forward going live, because that's really the best and easiest way for me as a very busy working clinician with a lot of projects to be able to maintain consistency on the internet. And it's my recommendation for you too. I'm a doctorally prepared nurse practitioner. I've been in healthcare for almost 15 years. And I've already talked about my journey both here on YouTube as well as on the Mahogany Dermatology blog. I'll link both of those, the video and the article, in the description box. Let's see. So this space is for you if you are an aspiring nursing student. Maybe you're in middle or high school. If you're in your first bachelor's program, like my mentee, if you're in your MP rotation and you're looking for a preceptor, if you're in your DMP program and you're trying to just secure IRB approval, come up with a project that people will agree to. If you're in your first MP clinical orientation, and that's whether you're a brand new MP or maybe you're just an experienced MP who's looking to transition into dermatology, this space is for you. And it's definitely for you if you have an inquisitive spirit, a spirit of innovation, and you want to be in the entrepreneurial space and you just want to be in community and network with other like-minded individuals so that you know where to start, how to grow, you get that confidence and encouragement that you need sometimes when that road gets lonely. This space is for you. I don't know everything. I do bring a lot of experience to the table. I'm not an expert in everything. And that's where that community becomes really important, because when we come together, we can bring our collective experiences together in one space, and it really helps us. And so that's what we're here to do. So let's see. So last time I talked about my first group coaching experience, which is all about social media, how to get found on YouTube. And in that video, I said I was going to share my favorite social media platform for you, for clinicians, for nurse practitioners in particular. And then I didn't. So this time I wrote an outline and I'm completely prepared. I'm so happy to be back. Last week I thought I was going to come back, and I had mentioned I wasn't sure how I was going to film since I was going to Detroit, and it turns out I never figured it out. And you know what? At first I was really going to try to make it happen, but then I thought, you know what? Especially after having the group coaching experience, and in those experiences, not only were they giving us the actual steps to do, they were demonstrating what they were teaching. And so in doing so, and what I try to do also through this platform and in real life, is a role model. And so, when we're in this space trying to navigate social media as clinicians and as providers, we're not taught about it in school. It's not part of our continuing education. And so we're out here trying to navigate it and trying to piecemeal together a strategy. And while there's a lot of wonderful resources online, I use them as well. When it comes to being a provider and a public figure, people can Google you, your patients, your students, employers. The steps that you take and the considerations that you make are going to be a little bit more unique and nuanced. And so that's why I do share as much as I can, because you can ignore it if you want, but like I said, students use social media for learning now. They use it to even just like do their own research and review potential programs that they might want to be a part of. I know when I forgot what program I was doing or what I was interested in. Might have even been all the way back in nursing school. I found someone on Facebook I wasn't even on Facebook at the time, but I think back then you could talk to people or something. I remember I contacted someone and they answered some questions for me about a program or school I was interested in. So, they're using it for that. They're using it to get information. like I said, our patients are using it to find us. People are traveling sometimes across the country because they've seen someone's social media platform and they really love the kind of care that they provide in the relationship that's being exhibited, through their content. Um, yeah, and it's the first place people go when they want to learn something. And so while there's a lot of people out here providing that information, we need to also be out here providing credible information, and also representation. In a myriad of ways, we can be representative here on social media. And so, like I said, one thing that I learned through my coaches, because this filming, I've actually participated in 3 group coaching experiences, and I just signed up for another one. It starts in a couple weeks. Yes, they were demonstrating how to, in that particular case, how to have a team and let them do what you ask them to do and trust that they can do it so that you can step away and do other things. And so while last week I said I was going to come back on, even though I was in Detroit, it didn't happen. And when you do start getting in social media, you learn about the algorithm and how important it is to be consistent in order to like gain your traction. And that is very important. But I think it's also important as clinicians that we consider the fact that, we are in a very high stress and role in industry, and our risk of being burnt out is a lot higher than some other people, particularly other content creators. But even with them, if you follow someone long enough, you'll find out that even they get burnt out sometimes or lose their creative stride, and they'll come on and make videos about that. And so I thought, even though at the first I was going to try to go live, I thought, you know what, it's actually better for me to take this break, really take the break, but also demonstrate to you that it's okay to take a break, and you just pick up when you come back. You don't have to apologize. A lot of people make those videos. Oh, I'm so sorry. Life happens. You don't have to do any of that. Just when just tell your community. Now that I've had that experience, because I document this learning live. Now moving forward, when I go on trips, I'll just let you know in advance that I won't be available. But also, it made me think because my recommendation, if you're going to create content, keep it simple. Don't try to be all fancy. Lighting, audio, and content. Those are the main things. But you could do batch content. For everything else that I do, it's always batch content creation. So there's one day dedicated to a whole bunch of stuff, and then you just schedule it out. That's really the best way to not get overwhelmed, because it's only one thing that you're doing, right? If you're using it for marketing or networking, that's only one aspect. So all your time can't really be given to that if you want every other areas of your business or your whatever you're doing to grow. There's some dogs walking by. The puppy might bark. We'll see. And of course, like every other video, I'm waiting on groceries. And so I message my shopper occasionally. So yeah, so moving forward, I'll either let you know that I can't make a video, or I'll do some videos ahead and schedule them out. We'll see. I'm still playing that one by ear. But yes, I went to Detroit. My goddaughter lives there, some good friends of mine. And we went to the Charles Wright Museum of African American History. They happen to have an exhibit going right now where they're putting on display the costumes from Black Panther. And it was so nice. I love museums. It was so great to go with my friends. And actually made me think, I don't think I've been to the museum with a lot of my friends. Sorry. And so it was really pleasant. And when we took my goddaughter too, and actually this museum, sorry, I asked them to tell me the amount of sodium in some coconut milk. Oh, it was started by a gynecologist. I meant to double check just to make sure, but I think he was a gynecologist. And so it was really fascinating. And it really gave me, even though I've been to museums for, a lot, all of us have, and I know the history and stuff like that. It was, it kind of just made me think a little bit differently about our history and our access to health information, and that there was really no point in history into present time, for the most part, where there was an interjection of people understanding the importance of health and exercise, because so much of our history has been about just surviving. So anyway, it was enlightening, to say the least. So, like I said in that last video, I told you I was going to tell you my favorite platform. It's LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn for networking. I love it if you're a student and you're looking for a mentor, even a preceptor, but you have to really walk that line really delicately. Nobody wants to get bombarded by people they don't know on social media because they need something from them and they're not offering anything to the table. But I love LinkedIn, if you're not into social media, because, you can get trapped in videos that a lot of entertainment videos and things like that. And sometimes those are great to relieve the mind, but it can be a little bit of a trap. And so what I love with like LinkedIn in particular is I don't see any, and I mean, a lot of it also has to do with who you choose to follow, right? I don't see those videos because I don't follow people who make that content. So that is one thing. Can't blame social media for everything, right? We have some responsibility. Sorry, I'm in the middle of I'm about to roll my hair, and I use these old school rollers. I have a whole thing, but I needed to buy some more of this size. I really could have. This size is great, actually. But anyway, I'm trying to get ready for a meeting too soon, and I have to sit under the dryer. This is real life. What was I saying? Do you remember what I was saying? Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember what I was saying. So anyway, I think that was all I had to say about. Oh yeah, so LinkedIn. So yeah, it's great because people, you can't be anonymous. People usually provide where they've gone to school, where they work, and you have other connections. So when you get out of when you're in college, it's kind of a safety zone because you have a reference point for everyone you meet. I know when I first graduated, and it was like, and you think about dating, it's like, oh man, I don't know this person from anything. But in college, at least you have like, oh, so and so knows them, or so and so grew up with them, or whatever. So you have like a little point of reference, and LinkedIn kind of provides that. Particularly if you can see who they're connected to. And when I see people who want to, connect, but we have no connections and their background, maybe we have no relationship there either, then I don't typically make that connection. But I love it for that reason. People post their resumes. They talk about when they've gotten hired, when they're getting fired. They share that experience. They're sharing, particularly the firing experience is being shared because they're open for they need a new job. So they're on there sharing that. And hey, and so I've seen people put their resume and get jobs on there. I found out about fellowships on there, scholarship opportunities. I just attended the National Black Nurses Association's inaugural Black Maternal Health Virtual Conference the last 2 days. Absolutely phenomenal. I interviewed Dr. Camilla Barnes last week or maybe 2 weeks ago now, on the Melanin Initiative podcast. And so she told us about her own nursing journey, the history of the National Black Nurses Association, and also what we would be expecting from the conference. And I am so glad she told us that. It was $50 for non-members. It was on the WOVA app, but you could also, through the WOVA app, you could watch the conference itself, but also you could click in and it would be Zoom. But within the WOVA app, you have the video, you have all the bios of the speakers. If they provided like attachments, you could go down there and get them there. You could chat with other participants. You could do messaging, see the leaderboard, which I love. It's a fun little way to encourage engagement. There were people posting jobs, people scheduling virtual meetups. Now, when you go to a physical conference, those meetups can actually be in person. Maybe the conference ends at 5 and you want to see if anyone wants to go out, see some sightseeing or something. You can use that for that. And you can put articles on there. I said WOVA. It's actually HOVA. I think it's HOVA. It's WHOVA, but it's pronounced like HOVA. I always butcher it, even though she told me. And I think someone told me last year too, but I still don't. I just remember how it looks, so I say how it looks. So yeah, it's a great platform. And actually, I really love the virtual platform. To me, that makes it even easier to put together something like this. Now, of course, I use the word easier lightly, because certainly you could tell by the amount of information that was brought forward in the last 48 hours took a lot of planning. There were politicians on there. Cory Booker. Oh, I don't think it was Hildebrand. Maybe it was. Don't quote me on that. It was politicians involved. And there was a lady on there, I think she might be Spike Lee's wife, and they did honorees and got awards and stuff like that. Fabulous, fabulous content. I made a lot of connections. I used it for networking, but it also reminded me how important it is if I'm going to be on this platform, especially at the podcast, to like maintain professional development. Of course, I do it for derm and NP stuff, but it kind of just made me think, like, with the role that I have taken on at the podcast, um, that it's important that I stay engaged and informed. Conferences aren't the only way to do that, but it is a great way to do that and to network and to also help market the podcast. Oh, there you go. Quiet. So that's that. So that's what I love about LinkedIn. Quiet. When people view there's free and there's some paid version. I only use the free version. I really can't even speak to about all the features you get with the paid version, but yeah, it's great. You can put articles on there, videos. So some of the reels that we use, because I use a social media management software for the podcast, and so the reels that I post on Instagram and TikTok also get posted on LinkedIn all at the same time. I love it. So yeah, that's what I love. That's what I love about LinkedIn, and it's my recommendation. Out of all of them, I would say LinkedIn's number one. I love YouTube, especially if you do long form content like I do and education based, because people use YouTube for that. TikTok is excellent. Uh, TikTok is excellent. We get the most views over there. So it kind of depends on what you're looking for. You're looking to get views with like awareness, or like affinity engagement, where people actually are participating in dialogue and building a community actively, then you probably would prefer like an Instagram platform. People really love Twitter still, which I started in Twitter. That was my first foray into social media. Well, my first foray was in AOL Messenger, then MySpace, Black Planet, and then Twitter. So after college, I don't think I did anything. And then I read a book by Rebecca White, who is Alice Walker's daughter. And at the end of the book, it said that you can contact her on Twitter. And at the time, I knew Twitter existed, but I wasn't into it. But when I saw that and I was like, oh, I really love the book, I just want to thank her, I reached out to her on Twitter, fell in love with it, was really involved in Black Twitter a lot in terms of consuming content, and then YouTube. And that really helped me with like feeling confident to wear my natural hair. Of course, I returned to it when I was thinking about locking, developing a plant-based lifestyle. Yeah, YouTube's been really instrumental in a lot of decisions I've made. So I love social media. So yeah, those are my recommendations. I'll continue to talk about it because I think it's really important. Because like I said, we don't really have a manual anywhere, not yet anyway. Let's see. So my first 90 days. So, I've made a few videos in these last 90 days, and now that now I would describe it as I feel like I am breathing again, right? And at the time, if you had asked me, certainly there was a period when I was overwhelmed. I didn't know I was overwhelmed at first, and then I realized I was overwhelmed. And then I started to find language for how I was feeling using the feelings chart and just exploring the options. And it got better. And I think I was going through some seasonal affective disorder. And so with that passing, as well as just getting more time under my belt, I'm in a really great space right now. I would say the last 3 weeks have been the best, which is crazy because before that, that's how long I've been doing the group coaching. And I would have thought I didn't have time because I didn't have time. But as soon as I signed up for that, man, I just shifted my priorities big time. And so the last 3 weeks have been amazing. I'm much more relaxed. I understand where my limitations are. I recognize that you're always doing multiple things at once. Like you're always doing that. And you're measuring multiple things at once. But I'm kind of focused on one achievement at a time. And like I said, my documentation has gotten better in terms, because now I've explored this, the the software, the EMR, the websites, all the records, how things are going to appear, where they appear, how to get them if I don't see them. And so that time has been put in. And so now I can move a little bit more swiftly and with intention. And so my time, and it's more effective. And I've learned where my lane is and how to stay in that lane. I'm working on communicating more frequently. My style of communication, I think, continues to improve also. And yeah, so those are kind of the big things. So yeah, right now I just feel like I'm in a really great space. And so for you, based on this 90 days, my experience would be if you're preparing for your first NP job, is to because so one thing I will say, the main theme, whether I was a student learning in clinical orientation, being precepted on the floor, even now, that a lot of this, I really learned this as a student getting tutored. And I think we do it also in our clinical practice with patients, which is partly why the Melanin Initiative even exists with a focus on health literacy, is that we put so much time explaining to people, showing people what we know instead of making sure that they understand, right? And so that's the same thing. And nurses are, I think, notorious for this. Is like, I'm going to show you how to do this. I'm going to show you how, if I'm working with you, say 2 weeks, for the whole 2 weeks, I'm going to show you how it's done because I'm trying to move on, right? Like that's a real thing. In real life, your training is in a live situation with real patients, with real colleagues who have families and concerns and other responsibilities that's on their mind. And so while they may have agreed to precept you or train you, they still have other things that they're thinking about. And so nurses are very routine, right? Once I have my routine, this routine works for me. If I do everything the same way, then I don't leave anything out. So when I'm training you, I'm concerned that if I don't do it the same way every time, I might miss something, right? And so even though it's supposed to be your time for learning, I'm going to show you how it's done because at the end of the day, it's still my responsibility to get it done. And that really robs the learner from building that muscle memory themselves, and you as the teacher to identify where those gaps are. And so as a student, if the tutor is showing me how to do a problem or complete a formula, it looks great. I'm going to say, yeah, I got it. I'm going to go home. I'm going to study by myself. I'm going to take my exam. And the minute I'm faced with having to think about those steps on my own without any prompting, that's where I recognize, oh, I didn't know the whys, the hows, the whens of this situation. And so now that I'm faced with that, I don't know really what to do. And sometimes if you see someone, let's say you're filling out a formula, they might know everything from how to get the right data to how to put it together. And the problem is at the end, you don't need to spend an hour or two or weeks even tutoring them on a concept when really the one thing is right here, right? But you're never going to know that if you don't spend more time letting them doing all the talking. Yes, you can show them the example one time, but after that, really, they should be the one doing the demonstrating. And your really role and position where your real expertise comes in is in your ability to communicate what they should do, to inquire from them their thought process and what it should be. I just had this conversation with my mentee because she was talking about her exam, and I was telling her, every time you have a question, I want you to go through these same steps. And it's funny because when we were taught this in school, it didn't click, right? It's the assessment. Whether it's a question or a patient, you're always, that's the first thing. What is this situation? What is this question asking me? Is this an assessment question? Am I supposed to be making an evaluation? Are we coming up with a treatment? Am I determining if my communication has been effective? And the patient demonstrates that by repeating it. And so it's a process every single time. And so what you're really helping that clinician do, that NP, that student, is develop their process. Now they can borrow yours. Certainly you're going to start with your process, but as you see them growing and evolving, you're helping them identify what's going to be the best process and strategy for them. That's the best way to really support them. And so, yeah, that's just been, especially because I was a student who did exceptionally well and a student who also really struggled. I was able to really, it helped me. It really, even though it delayed a lot of the things I wanted to do, because I had to keep staying, boosting up my GPA, taking all these other classes. In the end, it's really given me a great perspective. And I am really grateful actually, because it helped me just see things differently that you don't see if you're always in, especially the winning position, if you're always doing well. And if you always, I don't think it really applies to nurses because you can't really work, you can never work on your own. You always have to have someone there to show you the rope to bring you in. So, so that's the overall theme of nursing education and training, is that it's really important for you to do most of the talking. And it's going to start building up your confidence. A lot of this is really just confidence, 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 confidence. And so, my advice for you as you prepare for that first job, talk to the people who are already there. If you get an opportunity to shadow, most MPs I know, they have gotten that opportunity, depending on, I guess, the setting. Find out what the clinical workflow is like. How do they prepare the day before? How do they prepare when they walk in the door? How does it go throughout the day? Who else is part of that workflow? How do they communicate with them? What their needs are? How do they get feedback? How do they ensure that the other person understood it? Was it a good day for you too? What could I have done differently? What could I have done more of? What could I have done less of? How does that communication happen? And when's the best time for that communication? What's their life outside a clinic, right? Because so much of it is spent on that clinical setting. And that's even like what I'm doing with my platform, my entrepreneur endeavors. I'm not here to reinvent the wheel. There's people out here who already have resources for you to pass your exams, to pass your boards, to develop studies, to develop test taking strategies, to nail that diagnosis. You don't need me to do that again. That's why I'm not even on here talking about skincare regimens. There's thousands of videos out here teaching you about the importance of vitamin C, retinol, things like that. What about, it goes back to that whole thing of, you're more than a nurse, right? You're more than just what you do when it's time for patient care. And we all, in all of our conversations, we're all like, who's the most important? Who's really missing out at the end? Who's hurting at the end? The patient. Yeah, and the nurse, right? The nurse no one else in healthcare spends more time with patients, understands patient behavior more than the nurse, is the best to provide insight into new devices, interventions, changes in workflow, leadership, things like that. But you know what? The nurse doesn't know that. And so we're not asking for that. And the public doesn't see us that way. But that's changing. That's going to change. So ask about life outside of clinic. What do they do outside when find out more about that. And from different people who have families, people who don't have families. Because when people who have families like a place of work and they feel like it's supportive and they have time to either pick up their kids or drop them off, those are good signs of a consistency, right? Because kids go to school and get out of school at the same time. If they're able to maintain that, and if they stay there for a long period, it gives you a really good insight into what life outside a clinic is like. Entrepreneurship and social media. Now that was really big for me because I was already was out here doing the things. So I needed to make sure I would be in compliance. And so I made sure to ask those questions, read through all the fine print, and if those things change, where I would go to make sure everything's on the up and up, right? Um, and that's my advice. Don't try to hide. People are always watching you. Just be very, very conscious about that. I don't say that to scare you. I say that to empower you. Be open, be honest with yourself too, not just your employer. Because if you have an objective and a goal that isn't in alignment with your employer, that's not a good match. I don't want someone working for me who doesn't share my mission and vision, right? They're not going to really be the best person to help this business grow and scale. And you as a professional, that's not going to be the best place for you to thrive, right? You can walk into a place and be like, I know this isn't your final destination. Where are you trying to go next, right? How can I best support you? So find out about those rules if you find yourself in that space. And even if you don't have a business and you're just on social media consuming content, posting videos of your travels, it's still important because people are Googling you, and you need to be mindful of what will and won't be in competition with your employer. Oh yes, ask about family. Like, do they? Which I kind of already went over. People who have kids and family. That's really important to find out how that works for them. Ooh, there's my food, and the puppy's gonna do puppy things. Maybe I'll just keep him here. That will work. Okay. Let's see. Oh, and then continuing education. So that can be a very obvious thing, but I was really wanted to know about not only how much it is, but what it covers, right? Particularly if you are trying to get into derm and maybe you're not there yet, but you want to build up your continuing education because you're trying to increase your chances for getting that job. Will the job that you're at cover derm CEs? Like, it's a very good, very important question to ask. And are there required CEs that you have to complete? And if you take the money for those CEs, how long do you have to continue to work at that place and not have to pay it back? Like, after, if you take CE money, do you have to then stay another 6 months or 12 months? I know that was definitely the case in the hospital too. So make sure you understand that. Hi again. Hey, baby. So yeah, keep that in. So that's a question I would ask. Maybe I'll put, if you want me to put this in the comments, this little list that I have, or maybe I'll just make an article about it. Let me know how I can best support you. Let's see. And then, organization. I think that's so important if you're a new MP because you're going to get so much information thrown at you. And just you want to know how to keep it all organized, right? Because if I'm in this, I used to say this all the time when I was precepting on the unit too. I'll answer your question 100 times if you need me to, but there are some things that are routine and you should be writing it down so you don't have to ask that particular question again and again. And so for me, I like to use OneNote. I've used that before. I talked about that before. I still haven't made an article about it, but I love OneNote. I use it for in clinical orientation. I use it now in practice. I use it when I'm attending conferences and even webinars. And so let's say my derm notebook has like acne, rosacea, psoriasis, things like that. And then I also have places for like documentation, coding. And even though my place of employment had like an orientation checklist, like most places, I found that I needed a little bit more in terms of like, because just the way my brain works, like a 1, 2, 3 kind of thing, instead of things that were really broad. And so I created what some people call an SOP, which I can't remember what that stands for. Steps of procedures. Let's see. I don't want you out here wondering. SOPs. Oh, standard operating procedures, which is really just, like I said, a list of steps to follow. And so I created that for myself so that, because like I would see people, doing the things, and then it was time for me to do the things. I couldn't remember the order and when. And so I created my own SOPs. And when I made it, I had it in mind that, I could share it. And so I think about that when I'm putting stuff like that together. Even if I'm in that kind of, I just finished this book called Systemology, which is all about, which we do in nursing. At the first day, we're always planning discharge. So always have the end in mind. So yeah, have it in mind that what if you were to pass this on? Could someone else understand this and pick up where you left off, right? So that would be my other suggestion for getting organization. Also think about how you're going to put in reminders. Are you going to use digital calendars? How are you going to schedule meetings? Not just for clinic, right? I think that part you're probably pretty good. That's probably already set up for you, but your personal life and how that's going to be incorporated into your clinical practice. And so I love templates, have email signatures. I figure, you write emails all the time. You don't need to write the same thing over and over. So email templates, I set it up now if I need to set up meetings. I have just a link I can share. People can schedule appointments. We don't have to go back and forth with like several emails trying to find a time that works for both of us. I put in the time that works for me and they find one that works for them too. Yeah, I did a whole presentation on like how to automate your life. And right now, if you go to my LinkedIn page, maybe I'll put that link on here too. And you can see my whole presentation on that. And again, I wasn't reinventing the wheel, which is what we do on our DMP project. We find what's already out there and find a way to make it fit this setting, make a way for it to fit your life. And that's what I find myself doing a lot of times, is showing you these resources and how to make them work for you. And so in that presentation, I gave all the attendees a workbook. And if you're interested in that workbook, let me know. You can either leave a message in the comments, or you can tell me directly through the blog, Mahogany Dermatology blog. You can just send me an email. And so, yeah, I talked about the trainer, but it's also important for you as the learner to ask questions, ask why. Why is probably the best question you can ask. And also when you're talking through things, don't be afraid. This is such a safe space, and it's the opportunity to learn and to make mistakes. Like, just accept that you're going to make mistakes, and prayerfully you're in an environment where no one throws it in your face, because that's really just going to continue to help you grow. I had such a wonderful exchange this week with a colleague. I asked a question and I realized, oh, I probably should have been doing this before. And like, before I even recognized how that could have been defeating, they like immediately were like, it's okay, just move on, just do it moving forward. You've still had wonderful success, and it's such a great sign. Like, it was just, I wouldn't have even known to do that. And it just means so much that they would take the time to do that. It just makes such a safe space for learning, which is what we're always going to be doing, learning. It's called practice for a reason. So that would be that was like, I found that to be really touching. And honestly, if it had been maybe 2 months ago when I was having all that anxiety, I probably would have broke down when she said that. Instead, I just teared up a little bit, like I am now. So have your own clinical. So find out life inside and outside of clinic, how they stay organized, right? Because people who are at your place of work are experts in that setting. You really need you to capitalize on that. And then outside of that, you still need additional support. And that's why you've been hearing me, if you follow me on Instagram, about my new virtual preceptor program that I'm going to talk about in more detail. But it's basically this idea of giving you outside support. And so that's I highly recommend. Be an active learner. So in addition to asking why, find out the best time to ask your questions, because I know sometimes you can feel like this isn't a great, I really have this question, but I can see and I hear and I know we're really busy. We have to move really quickly. So I just want to find out when the best time is for you and me as the learner, to make sure I can really understand. And it doesn't harm patient care, and it doesn't, slow down the workflow. So just find that information out. If you need to, write your questions down so you can address them at another time. And also, inquire feedback from everyone on the team. How can you be better? How can you support them? That shouldn't really be a guessing game. I talked about using OneNote. Don't depend on your memory. You're not going to get an award for that. So just don't do it. You have enough things in there. It just makes your life easier. It'll definitely help your sleep if you don't have to think about a lot of things. And I know I've been there. Let's see. Ooh, a good one that I've done recently is both personally and professionally, is set times for when I'm going to respond to calls and emails. When I typically check everything on a daily basis, but I might not respond right away, because I want to make sure that my response is thorough and that I've done whatever background research I need to do. And so there's a book called The 4-Hour Workweek by Timothy Ferriss. And I'll link that in here. I need to make my own notes about what I need to link, because even I won't remember it. Case in point, the last video. So I said the 4-Hour Workweek. Oh, and then my presentation. That presentation was for the Virginia Women's Baptist Ministry. The kickstart of their new year. It's a link to the Zoom. I don't know how long it's going to be up, so by the time you watch this, it might not be available. But don't fret, because I'm going to repeat that presentation. That's actually a presentation I want to keep in my catalog, because I really like that, and I'm going to update it too. But so I put that in the. So anyway, in the book, he talks about how he chooses certain hours of the day to check and respond to email, which I adopted. But even because you can schedule emails when the best time is for you, even follow-ups. Maybe like you have a meeting and it's like, oh, we need to reschedule. I'll contact you in 2 weeks when I come back from vacation. But instead of me I just do it right there. I just schedule it for 2 weeks out. and then it's done, right? I can move on. And I don't have to keep a running tally of something else I need to do. But also the thing that I love that he said is don't just respond to people just to respond, right? We all get inundated with emails. When I read an email, I want it to be something I can act on, not something I need to continue to wait, right? It's not obvious, but you can assume that if I'm waiting for your response, then it's not a good time for you. So to email me and say, it's not a good time for me. Yeah, I'll email you back. I just want to let you know I received your email. Everyone might feel differently about that depending on the urgency of the matter. But for me, if it's not urgent, I'd rather respond when I can provide a thorough response. So the quality of the response. And I borrowed that from Tim Ferriss. Excellent book, by the way. And that's an audiobook. I always recommend audiobooks. Oh, and so also with the boundaries, like even like my own, like, yeah, if you have access, if you have people can call you by phone, choose a time that you want your day to start and end because that phone goes with you everywhere. And once you set that up, other people will respect it. And that's just that simple. This could be for your family too. This is not all work related. And okay, so I talked about my anxiety many times. So yeah, because I'm being a new NP, but also still running all this other stuff on my other projects. I haven't been sleeping that much. I haven't been tired though. So my diet, yeah, there was all the holidays. So my diet wasn't horrible, but I cleaned it up really nicely and for the last month. But I still gained weight, and I think that's because I'm not sleeping, I'm not drinking enough water. I think my cortisol levels are elevated, and my exercise needs to bump it up. So I have made some of those changes. Well, all those changes. The water, I'm still working on the water. Because I eat so many fruits and vegetables, a lot of times they have a high water content. Especially like when I get out of work, I eat an apple in the car, and then I notice I'm not thirsty because I've been hydrated, and I drink on the job too. Not as much as I used to drink, which is part of the problem. I don't eat and drink as frequently, and so I think my metabolism has gone down. But like I said, I cleaned up my diet really nicely. But I just think it's those other things that are a little bit defeating. So I put air in my tires and my bike, and they were completely flat because they've been in my storage for the last 3 years. And when I was traveling, I didn't have my car. I actually got rid of my car after the first year in my apartment. But I used to bike and hike and use scooters to get to work. Plus, I would still do my regular workout. And so you take away, and I was walking. Oh, I was walking like, because we have a little walking group, me and my mom. And so we all log in our miles. And I used to get like 16, 17, 18,000 steps. And so you think about all that activity, and now I don't have any of that. And so I put the air in my tires, gonna bike again, and I was doing more yoga, less cardio, but I switched that. So now I'm doing back to more cardio, weights, hit. Still have the yoga, just not as much as it was. So those things are in place. So now we just move forward. And I've just been learning to give myself more grace, which is my advice to you. Even just give yourself grace. Someone pointed out something I needed to pay attention to. And I was like, yes, I will do that. But I didn't get overwhelmed over it. And I'm so glad. It's like, you've said it, I've noticed it, and now it's gonna, every time it's like gonna be added on every time. And it's helping me adopt my muscle memory, right? Make sure you do this, make sure you do that. Da, 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 da. And I was telling my student, like when I used to take notes, right? I used to handwrite notes out and I would read the first part of a sentence, right? Because you've read these notes like 3 or 4 times. And you get so desensitized that you think you've seen everything that I wouldn't read the whole sentence. And then I would get a question wrong in a test. And when I would come back to my notes to see, did I even have that information? Or I knew I had it, but I couldn't remember it all. I would see that I wasn't reading the full sentence because I had gotten so desensitized thinking, oh, I know this. And so I feel like I'm there, like reminding myself to just look at every little piece and then move on. And so I think that would be helpful. But I was just really proud of myself for not getting overwhelmed with that or even feeling defeated. Like, oh, you missed something else. Oh, you missed something else. I was just like, you know what? I've been making progress. And this is just going to be another area, the next step that I focus on too. Yeah. So let's see. Make sure I haven't Forgot. Oh, so I want to tell you about and yeah, just remember to have fun, which is kind of what Detroit was for me, and to listen to music and laugh and just get your rest, especially mental rest. That's something I'm still working on. This is Sunday. I do like restorative yoga on Sunday, and I'm still working on relaxing my mind. I'm I'm a creative. I have a lot of ideas that are always spinning, and sometimes there's a little bit of fear that, oh, if I don't like write it down or act on it right now, I'll forget. And that's why I use Notion to keep track of like all my little ideas. I used to put them in like a Gmail draft. They're probably still sitting there, but this way they can be there, and I know they're there. And so when I set aside time to work on those things, I'll just go there and start with that. But yeah, I want to just finish up talking about my millionaire mindset coaching with Rachel Rogers. She is a lawyer. Um, so she was a lawyer. She started her own practice. Actually, it was a virtual practice, which I love. And then she kept getting so many inquiries about business that now she started ROI so ROI is an annual summit. Her business is Hello Seven Figures, because she thinks we should all be millionaires, with an emphasis on women of diverse backgrounds and identities. And so she did a coaching, which was 5 days. It was so unlike the first one I did for the social media, that was 3 p.m. every afternoon. This one, and it was supposed to be an hour, but she's so sweet and kind. She made sure everyone's question was addressed. So the first day we met for 2 hours, and then it was roughly like two and a half. It was like 2 hours, an hour and 45 minutes, mostly most days, because she just wanted to make sure everyone got a chance to speak. And that was a group of 30, so that was feasible. Um, but with the second one with Rachel, it was at 12 p.m. So I didn't make any of the did I make any of those? I think I caught a couple like towards the end. Um, but for the most part, I just watched the replay. And so unlike the social media one, which I still have access to, the millionaire one with Rachel, we only had 24 hours, but that created a really good sense of urgency. And she was just like, don't waste time, which I don't know, for me, that's one of the reasons I even was attracted to the idea of coaching, is this sense of like urgency, like help me to move things forward. And so she did that for me. And then in all of them, there were 5 days, essentially 1 hour. You get a workbook. Each day you got a different workbook with homework assignments. And at the end of the week, there was like a big goal. So for the social media one, it was for a YouTube video following a certain format. And then for the millionaire mindset one, which was make money moves. Make money moves challenge. By the end of the week, you were supposed to create a $1 million offer. And so you have something to work towards. You're in community. And so outside of the actual coaching, the group coaching, and so with Rachel, we would get so for the millionaire mindset one, for general access, I want to say that was $95. But if you paid for VIP access, which I don't know the cost of that one, their session started at 11, and those people got to ask a question directly. And then we joined. They would open that up like 10 minutes before, like at the last 10 minutes, so that we could see we could kind of get an idea of what VIP access gives you. Um, and so that was cool. And so we had that. And then you have community after, and people were in there again talking about their fears, and people were encouraging them and talking about their platform. And you know what I really look at it like? It's like, okay, I have a business, right? And the fear is that I won't have enough clients or patients, and then I won't succeed. Well, if we have a community of however many people, at some point I'm going to need your help for marketing or insurance or taxes or referrals, right? So if you're in community with me, and maybe you have a primary care practice, you refer all your derm patients to me. Now you're helping keep me in business, and when I have primary care needs, I'm going to refer them to you. And if you have a tax business, because at some point we're all going to need help, right? So instead of going over there to someone I have no clue who they are, I'm going to go to you. And just just because we're just part of the same community, right? And so to me, it's kind of just like you're buying into the community, and that there's a unspoken agreement that we're going to support each other in this community, which I feel is what Ivy League schools are. That's my personal experience. Um, on the outside and on the inside of Ivy League schools is that and even Greek organizations, it's like we're going to support each other so we can all be successful. Some people don't like that, but it's like you have to realize at some point you're going to need help. Who are you going to go get that help from? And so it could be your community. She has a book called We Shall Be Millionaires. And I don't know if that was New York Times bestseller, but she's won a lot of, she's been the top of list for a lot of things. And she does a lot of audible books she's talked about because she has a podcast too, also called Hello 7. I'll put that in the description box. Let me make sure I tell myself in the description box. So the podcast is great, and it's all about mindset, right? And that you can hear me say it, but you have to really experience it because you don't, because you think maybe you're skeptical or you're fearful or you're doubtful, but what you don't realize is all those feelings and thoughts came from somewhere. Your experiences or socialization, the norms, your community, right? And so until you have to at least believe that what you think and feel is just one way. Like it is possible to think and feel another way. And that when you're exposed to those ways of thinking, your thoughts can also evolve. And so that can be quick. It can also be very long. And so I've been exposed to this kind of thought process for a very long time. So for me, when I hear people who have those doubts and fears, I remember that. I do. And when I'm in these groups, I see people still in those stages. And it can be very crippling. But when you are in a safe space, in a supported space, and you're kind of just ready, to like do something different, get a different result, that can just be the perfect environment for you to do that. And I think it's so applicable to nursing and nurses. And so what I love being part of the other communities outside of healthcare because they provide a different perspective. But they also show me how valuable I can be, like how transferable our skills and experiences are. But particularly because I am in the entrepreneurial space, you have to think, how can you stand out? How are you going to be different? And so if I only watch other people who do what I do, that's not really creative, right? If I only just duplicate what they're doing, that's not going to help me stand out. But I can get really great ideas on other industries. Like, look how they do it this way. And I bring it over here to what I do. And all of a sudden, what I do can stand out a little different. So that I love it. I highly recommend her book. If you've taken her coaching, if you have read any of her books or her podcasts, let me know. I really want to go to one of her conferences. And let's talk about price, right? And then we'll close this up because I was in Detroit last week and I was talking to them about this. I talk about all the time. And people think two things when it comes to money. One, it's too expensive, right? So I just told you that initial group coaching with 600 people, obviously it's not as intimate as the 30, right? I don't know everybody's name in there, but I'm in a position where now I wasn't. But also that's an entry fee, right? Because you do have a level of skepticism. You do have a level that you can actually invest, right? If you're brand new starting out, you might not be able to invest $25,000 like someone else can, but you don't start at 25,000. You start at 95 and grow from there, right? Not only your business, your ideas, your comfort level, your risk tolerance, but also your ability to make that investment, right? Because the people who are paying $25,000, you have to think where they're probably at in their business and what they're looking to get out of it, right? They're not going to be talking about their fears in the same place that someone who's just starting or who hasn't even built anything yet will be, right? So that's a different level of commitment. And quite frankly, when I'm in that kind of community, I'm expecting results. So we're going to be working at a different pace and level. So that's my part about that. The other thing is you're not paying that person, you're investing in yourself, right? And now that I've done it, I hands down will continue to do it. And then price. I was going to say something else about the price. The price that you pay, and yeah, I can't remember what else. But it's worth it if you're ready. And if you just want a glimpse, yeah, the $100, it's not. To me, it's worth it. To me, it was completely worth it, and that's why I already signed up for my fourth one. Okay, so let's see. Did I forget anything? Let me know if I forgot anything, if I didn't address anything. I think all the stuff I said I was going to talk about, I did. Oh, so yeah, I'm so glad. My number one lesson in these last 90 days is just to take it one step at a time. And only you can be in control of that, right? You're going to have pressures from your patients, from your colleagues, not like intimidating pressure, just like, you just the expectation, and you're in a position of expectation, and you have to extend yourself grace. And I think that's the biggest lesson I learned. And just to put things on the calendar that are important to me, and not assume they're going to happen just because it's in my head. So those, my biggest thing is to give myself grace and to make space for all the things that matter. And that's my wish for you too. So thank you so much for watching. The next one, I think I'll talk about my licensure, because I was going to do a quick little blurb here, but then I was like, I'll save it for later, about my getting my licensure, because I have 3 MP licenses and I have my RN compact. So we'll do that in the next video. I'll talk about my 3rd coaching experience, which is all about public speaking. And yeah, so if you haven't already, please subscribe. If you stuck around this long, thank you. Follow me here, like and subscribe. I'm on all the social media well, I'm not on all of them. Me personally, the podcast is. But you can follow, you can go over to the blog, you can shoot me an email, we continue our conversation, tell me how I can best support you in your journey, and if there's a way we can best partner. Yeah, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.